On March 14, 2025, the Event Horizon Telescope detected something that should not exist. It should not exist in the sense of being unlikely. It should not exist in the sense of being rare. It should not exist in the sense that the laws of physics, as we understand them, explicitly forbid it. Behind the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy, in a region of space that should be invisible, something is moving, and it is getting closer. The shadow of Sagittarius A star, the 4 million solar mass black hole anchoring the Milky Way, is the darkest thing in our observable universe. Nothing escapes it. Not light, not matter, not information. But for the past 6 weeks, X-ray observatories have been detecting emissions from a location that should be geometrically impossible to observe. A point in space, directly behind the event horizon, blocked by 4 million suns worth of gravity. We should not be able to see it. We cannot see it. Yet the signal is there. It is growing stronger. It is pulsing with a rhythm that matches nothing in our catalogs of astronomical phenomena. The first team to notice it thought their instruments were malfunctioning. The second team thought it was interference. The third team stopped publishing their findings because they could not explain what they were seeing without sounding insane. On April 2, 2025, the signal changed. It stopped pulsing randomly and locked into a pattern. One pulse every 11.7 seconds. Exactly 11.7 seconds. Not 11.6. Not 11.8. 11.7. The same interval we have now seen twice before. Once from an interstellar comet, once from a distant gamma-ray burst, and now from behind the black hole we have been orbiting for 4.6 billion years. Whatever is back there knows we are watching, and it wants us to know it is there. This is the story of how we discovered we are not at the center of our own galaxy. How we learned that the black hole we thought was an anchor is actually a door, and how something on the other side is trying to open it. Let me take you back to April of 2017. That is when we first photographed a black hole's shadow, not Sagittarius A star. That came later. The first image was of M87 star, a supermassive black hole 55 million light-years away in the Virgo cluster. You have seen the image. Everyone has. The glowing orange ring with the dark center looks like an eye, or a cosmic whirlpool, or the iris of some vast celestial being staring back at us. That dark center is not the black hole itself. It is the shadow. The region where gravity is so intense that light curves back on itself, creating a sphere of absolute darkness larger than our entire solar system. The Event Horizon Telescope, a network of radio dishes spread across the planet, works together as one Earth-sized lens. It captured that shadow by collecting light from the superheated matter swirling around the black hole's edge. It took 2 years to process the data. 2 years of algorithms and error checking and making absolutely certain that what they were seeing was real. When the image was finally released on April 10, 2019, it confirmed something Einstein predicted a century earlier. Black holes exist. They warp space-time. They create shadows. We thought we understood them. We were wrong. Sagittarius A star sits 26,000 light-years from Earth, in the constellation Sagittarius. You cannot see it with your eyes. You cannot see it with optical telescopes. The galactic center is obscured by vast clouds of dust and gas. But radio waves pass through dust. X-rays pass through dust. When you point the right instruments at the exact coordinates where the galaxy's rotational dynamics say a massive object must exist, you find it. 4.1 million times the mass of our Sun, compressed into a region smaller than Mercury's orbit. Everything in the Milky Way, every star, every planet, every atom of gas orbits around this invisible anchor point, including us. Our Sun, our Earth, everything we have ever known, is spiraling around Sagittarius A star at 220 kilometers per second. We complete one orbit every 230 million years. We are falling. We have always been falling. We just move so fast sideways that we never get closer. In 2022, the Event Horizon Telescope finally captured Sagittarius A star's shadow. It took longer than M87 because our black hole is smaller, more turbulent, and harder to image through the galactic plane's interference. But they got it. Another glowing ring. Another dark center. Proof that the monster at the heart of our galaxy looks exactly like we predicted. For 2 years, that image was studied, analyzed, and picked apart by astrophysicists worldwide. They measured the ring's diameter. They calculated the spin rate. They confirmed the mass. Everything matched predictions. Everything made sense. Until someone noticed that the shadow was moving. Black hole shadows don't move. They can't. The shadow is a geometric consequence of extreme gravity. It's like saying the shape of a sphere should change. It doesn't, because the math is fixed. But in January 2025, Dr. Kenji Yamamoto at the Kavli Institute noticed something strange in the archival data. When he compared the 2022 image of Sagittarius A star to follow-up observations from 2024, the shadow's eastern edge was offset by 0.003 arcseconds. That's tiny, impossibly tiny. 0.003 of an arcsecond is like spotting a coin on the moon from Earth, but it's measurable, and it shouldn't exist. Yamamoto ran the calculations 6 times, checked for instrumental drift, atmospheric distortion, data processing errors. Everything came back clean. The shadow had moved. Or something had moved behind it, creating the illusion of movement. He published a paper in February 2025, Anomalous Geometric Displacement in Sagittarius, a Star Shadow Structure. Careful language, tentative conclusions. Calling for more observations. 3 weeks later, the X-ray observatories reported something that made Yamamoto's paper look quaint. NASA's Chandra X-ray Observatory has been watching the Galactic Center since 1999. For 26 years, it's cataloged the high-energy chaos around Sagittarius A star, gas clouds superheating to millions of degrees, matter torn apart by tidal forces, the violent death throes of things falling past the event horizon. It's a cosmic massacre, and Chandra has documented every scream. On March 14, 2025, Chandra detected an X-ray source at coordinates that should be impossible. Right ascension 17 hours, 45 minutes, 40.0, 4 seconds. Declination minus 29 degrees, 0 minutes, 28.1 seconds. Those coordinates place the source directly behind Sagittarius A star from Earth's perspective. Not beside it. Not in orbit around it. Behind it. Behind 4 million solar masses of gravity. The laws of physics are clear on this. Light cannot curve around a black hole's event horizon from the far side and reach us. The gravity well is too deep. Photons traveling toward us from behind Sagittarius A star would be pulled backward, swallowed, erased. We should see nothing from that region. It should be a permanent blind spot, a place where information simply cannot reach us. Yet Chandra was detecting X-rays. Lots of them. Energy levels consistent with matter heated to 70 million degrees Kelvin. The first assumption was contamination. Some foreground source, a neutron star, a stellar flare, instrument noise, creating a false positive. They checked. No foreground sources, no instrument errors. The second assumption was gravitational lensing. Maybe light from something beside the black hole was being bent around it, making it appear to come from behind. They modeled it. The lensing math did not work. The apparent source location was too precise, too stable. The third assumption was that they were seeing something falling into the black hole from the far side, briefly visible before disappearing. Except the signal was not brief. It lasted for 6 hours. Then it appeared again the next day, and the day after that, something behind Sagittarius A star was producing X-rays continuously, and somehow, impossibly, those X-rays were reaching us. The paper that should have been published never was. The Chandra team prepared a draft titled Persistent X-ray Emission from Geometrically Occluded Region Behind Sagittarius A Star and submitted it to Astrophysical Journal. It was rejected. Not for bad methodology, not for insufficient data, for being impossible. One reviewer wrote, "The authors have either made a fundamental error in coordinate transformation or are claiming a violation of general relativity. Neither is publishable without extraordinary evidence." The Chandra team went back. They checked their coordinate systems. They verified their calibration. They recruited 3 independent teams to analyze the raw data. All 3 teams confirmed it. The X-ray source was behind the black hole, and it was still there. On March 28th, the team tried a different approach. They submitted to ArgZiv, a preprint server where papers appear before peer review. Just get the data out there. Let the community see it. The paper appeared online at 03:14 UTC on March 29th. Within 6 hours, it had been downloaded 18,000 times. Within 12 hours, observatories around the world were reorienting to point at Sagittarius A star. Within 18 hours, the X-ray source pulsed. Pulsars pulse. Neutron stars rotating at incredible speeds, beaming radiation like cosmic lighthouses. We have cataloged thousands of them. They pulse regularly, milliseconds, seconds, minutes, depending on their rotation rate. But pulsars do not hide behind black holes, and their pulses are not this regular. The X-ray source behind Sagittarius A star pulsed with mathematical precision. One emission peak every 11.7 seconds. The interval varied by less than 0.001 seconds across hundreds of cycles. That level of precision requires a mechanism more stable than rotation, more stable than orbital dynamics, more stable than anything naturally occurring in the violent environment of a galactic center. It requires intent. Dr. Yamamoto was the first to say it publicly. In an interview with Nature on April 1st, and yes, the date is ironic, he stated, "We need to consider the possibility that the signal is artificial. Artificial, meaning made by something, designed by something, transmitted by something. The word hung in the air like smoke. Once spoken, it could not be unspoken." Within hours, SETI researchers were analyzing the signal structure. They were looking for information content, patterns, mathematical encoding. They found it. The pulse was not just regular. It was modulated. Each 11.7-second pulse contained fine structure variations in intensity, frequency shifts, harmonic layering. When mapped onto a spectrogram, the modulations formed patterns, repeating sequences, prime numbers, Fibonacci progressions, the mathematical signatures of intelligence. Something was broadcasting from behind the most powerful gravitational object in our galaxy. Broadcasting with technology that could push X-rays through a space-time well that should be impenetrable. And they were using the same timing signature we had seen before. 11.7 seconds. The calling card, the identifier. Whatever contacted Mars with 3I Atlas, whatever caused the distant gamma-ray burst, was now transmitting from inside our own galaxy, from behind the door we never knew existed. Let me pause here because this is where rational skepticism starts to fracture. The community split into 3 camps, again. Camp 1 insisted on natural explanations. Maybe the X-rays were bouncing off some exotic matter near the event horizon. Maybe there was a wormhole, an Einstein-Rosen bridge, allowing photons to tunnel through space-time. Maybe our understanding of black hole geometry had a flaw. Camp 2 cautiously acknowledged the artificial signal hypothesis, but demanded more data. One modulated signal is not proof of intelligence. Show us a message. Show us intentional communication. Show us something that cannot be coincidence. Camp 3 went silent, because Camp 3 was looking at classified data that the public would not see for another 2 weeks. Data from gravitational wave detectors. LIGO, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, detects ripples in space-time caused by massive cosmic events, colliding black holes, merging neutron stars, anything violent enough to shake the fabric of the universe. Since 2015, LIGO has detected dozens of gravitational wave events. Each one is a collision billions of light years away, so energetic that the waves reach us across cosmic distances. On April 3, 2025, LIGO detected something different. Not a collision, not a merger. A sustained gravitational wave emission from the direction of Sagittarius A star, lasting 17 minutes. Frequency, 0.085 Hertz. Amplitude, 10 to the minus 20. One strain barely detectable, but definitely there. Gravitational waves from a black hole that's just sitting there shouldn't exist. Sagittarius A star isn't colliding with anything. It's not merging. It's not doing anything that should produce sustained space-time ripples. Unless something is manipulating the space-time around it. The LIGO team immediately classified the data, not because of military concerns, not because of national security, because the waveform contained modulation, the same 11.7-second interval, the same harmonic structure. Something was using the black hole itself as a transmitter, vibrating space-time, broadcasting through the very geometry of the universe. And the message if it was a message, wasn't traveling at light speed. It was traveling at the speed of gravity, at the speed of causality itself, reaching not just our instruments, but the fundamental structure of reality around us. April 8th, 2025. The first public disclosure. Not from NASA, not from ESA. From the International Astronomical Union, in an emergency press conference convened in Geneva. The statement was brief, carefully worded, terrifying in its implications. Recent observations of the Galactic Center have revealed anomalous emissions from a region previously considered geometrically inaccessible. The emissions display characteristics inconsistent with known astrophysical processes. Further investigation is ongoing. Public observatories are encouraged to contribute data. No immediate threat to Earth has been identified. That last sentence did more harm than good, because saying no immediate threat implies the possibility of future threat. And everyone who read the statement asked the same question. Threat from what? The IAU didn't answer. They couldn't, because they didn't know. The internet did what the internet does. Theories exploded across every platform. It's aliens. It's a wormhole. It's evidence of a simulation. It's a government psyop. It's the end times. It's proof of God. It's proof of the multiverse. Amateur astronomers pointed backyard telescopes at Sagittarius. Radio enthusiasts scanned every frequency. Conspiracy theorists declared they'd been right all along about everything. But beneath the noise, serious work was happening. Observatories coordinated observations. Data was pooled. Models were built. And slowly, a picture emerged. The X-ray source behind a Sagittarius A star wasn't stationary. It was moving. Slowly. Deliberately. Over the course of 2 weeks, it had shifted position by 0.1 arcseconds. In galactic center terms, that's about 300 billion kilometers, 10 times the distance from the Sun to Neptune. Something massive was moving through the space behind the black hole. And it was approaching the event horizon, not falling in, approaching, with trajectory corrections, with controlled deceleration, like a spacecraft entering orbit. April 15th, 2025. The signal changed again. The 11.7-second pulse remained, but the modulation became more complex. Layered frequencies. Nested patterns within patterns. A team at the Breakthrough Listen project at Berkeley ran the signal through every decryption algorithm they had. Standard SETI protocols, information theory metrics, entropy analysis. The signal was information dense, far denser than any natural process should produce. It had the statistical signature of compressed data like a zip file, but encoded in X-ray intensity variations. They couldn't decode it. The compression scheme was too alien, too different from human methods, but they could measure the information content, and it was enormous, gigabytes per minute, being transmitted continuously. Someone was uploading something, or downloading, or broadcasting across the galaxy, using our black hole as a relay point. The Berkeley team's conclusion, published on Arxiv on April 16th. The signal represents intentional information transmission by an advanced technological source. Purpose and content remain unknown. Origin point remains geometrically impossible. That word again. Impossible. Except it was happening. Impossible just meant we didn't understand the mechanism yet. April 20th, 2025. The breakthrough. Dr. Sarah Chen, yes, the same Sarah Chen from the 3I Atlas investigation, was analyzing the gravitational wave data from LIGO. She noticed something everyone else had missed. The gravitational waves weren't just modulated, they were interfering with each other, creating patterns of constructive and destructive interference. Like ripples in a pond, overlapping, creating regions of calm and regions of chaos. Chen ran a Fourier analysis on the interference pattern, decomposed it into component frequencies, mapped the nodes and antinodes. The pattern that emerged was geometric, three-dimensional, a structure encoded in space-time itself. She rendered it as a three-dimensional model, rotated it, zoomed in, and saw what everyone had been looking for. A map. Not a map of stars, not a map of the galaxy, a map of something else. Something encoded in the warped space-time around Sagittarius A star. The map showed paths, trajectories, curved lines connecting points in space-time that shouldn't connect. Shortcuts through gravity wells, tunnels through folded dimensions. Dr. Chen stared at her screen for 10 minutes without moving. Then she picked up her phone and called the director of the Kavli Institute. "I know how they're doing it," she said. "I know how they're transmitting from behind the black hole. And if I'm right, Sagittarius A star isn't a black hole. It's a hub." Here's what we thought we knew about black holes. They're collapsed stars. Regions where matter has compressed so densely that escape velocity exceeds light speed. Once you cross the event horizon, the point of no return, you fall forever toward the singularity at the center. Nothing escapes. Nothing survives. The black hole is an end point, a cosmic grave. But what if that's wrong? What if the event horizon isn't a one-way surface? What if it's a membrane? A boundary between our space-time and something else? The math has always allowed for this. Einstein's equations permit wormholes, tunnels through space-time connecting distant regions. But we've never detected one, never seen evidence that they exist outside. Theory. Dr. Chen's hypothesis is simple and terrifying. Sagittarius A star isn't just a black hole. It's both ends of a wormhole. The event horizon we see is one mouth. The other mouth is somewhere else, somewhen else. And the X-ray source we're detecting isn't behind the black hole. It's on the other side of the wormhole, in a different region of space, transmitting back through the tunnel. When you look at a wormhole from outside, you see a black hole, because light trying to escape gets trapped. But from inside the tunnel, looking back, you'd see through to the other side, which means something is inside Sagittarius A star, inside the throat of the wormhole, broadcasting back to our side, using the black hole's gravity to amplify and focus the signal. They're not behind the black hole. They're in it, and they're coming through. April 22nd, 2025. The global astronomy community held a virtual summit. 8,000 attendees. Every major observatory represented. One question on the agenda. What do we do? The options were limited. Option 1. Observe and wait. Keep collecting data. Don't assume intent. Maybe this is natural. Maybe it's exploratory. Maybe it's harmless. Option 2. Attempt communication. Transmit a signal toward Sagittarius A star. Show that we're intelligent, aware, willing to establish dialogue. Option 3. Prepare. Assume worst case. Whatever's coming through the wormhole might not be friendly. We can't defend against something like this, but we can document it, preserve data, leave a record. The summit lasted 11 hours. No consensus was reached. Too many unknowns, too many fears. But one thing was agreed upon. We would not transmit. Not yet. Not until we understood more. Because if something is using the galactic center as a doorway, the last thing we want to do is knock. April 25th, 2025. The first visual observation. The Event Horizon Telescope completed a new imaging campaign. 72 hours of continuous observation. Every dish on the network pointed at Sagittarius A star. The data took 4 days to process. When the image finally resolved, it was distributed to the core team under strict embargo. I've seen that image. I can't show it to you, not yet. But I can describe it. The black hole's shadow is still there. The glowing accretion disk is still there. Everything looks normal from the outside. But there's something in the shadow. A point of light. Faint. Almost imperceptible against the background. It shouldn't be there. The shadow is a region of absolute darkness. Nothing emits light from inside the event horizon. Yet this does. And it's moving. Frame by frame, day by day, it's growing brighter. Closer to our side of the wormhole. Whatever's coming through hasn't arrived yet. But it's close. Close enough that we can see the light it's emitting starting to leak through the tunnel. The team estimated arrival time based on the brightness increase. They calculated trajectory. They ran models. The consensus. Whatever's in there will emerge from the event horizon in approximately 120 days. That's September 22nd, 2025, 4 months from now. Let me tell you what we're seeing in the data. What's being discussed in closed sessions, what astronomers whisper about in hallways but won't say publicly. The light coming from inside the shadow isn't random. It's structured. When you zoom in, when you enhance the signal and filter out the noise, you can see patterns, geometric shapes, lines and curves that don't match the chaotic swirl of an accretion disk. They look like architecture, not buildings, not anything we'd recognize as human construction, but organized complexity. Symmetry. Design. Something large is inside that wormhole, large enough that we can see its structure backlit against the void, and it's oriented deliberately, facing our side, preparing to emerge. The engineers are calling it a vessel. The size is hard to calculate. Distance and perspective are warped near the event horizon, but preliminary estimates put it at over 3,000 kilometers across. That's larger than our moon, larger than anything humanity has ever built or imagined building, and it's coming through May 5th, 2025. The second signal, not from Sagittarius A star this time, from somewhere else. Multiple locations, simultaneous. Radio telescopes around the world detected brief pulses from 17 different locations in the sky. Each pulse lasted exactly 11.7 seconds. Each one transmitted the same information-dense modulation. The 17 locations weren't random. When astronomers mapped them, they formed a pattern, a three-dimensional configuration, points in space surrounding our solar system in a precise geometric arrangement. Dodecahedron, 12-faced polyhedron, five-fold symmetry. The 17 points were markers, beacons, defining a boundary, and Earth was at the center. Whatever was coming through Sagittarius, a star wasn't just entering our galaxy, it was setting up a network, a grid, a structure that encompassed our local space. One astrophysicist described it this way: it's like watching someone set up router nodes before establishing a connection. They're building infrastructure. Infrastructure for what? No one wanted to answer that question. May 10th, 2025. The observatories detected something new, not a signal. Movement. Dozens of objects, small, fast, were emerging from regions near Sagittarius A star. Not from the event horizon itself, they appeared to be launching from the space around it, the ergosphere, the region where frame-dragging effects are strongest. Each object was moving at a significant fraction of light speed, 0.01 c, 3,000 kilometers per second, and they were spreading out, heading toward different regions of the galaxy, different directions, different destinations. One of them was heading toward the solar system. Time to arrival, approximately 2 years. The launch wasn't chaotic. It was coordinated, deliberate, like a fleet dispersing to assigned positions. Whatever was at the galactic center wasn't acting alone. It was part of something larger, an organization, a network, and it was deploying. May 15th, 2025. Dr. Chen published a paper, not on our exhiv, not in a journal, on her personal blog, where it couldn't be blocked or retracted. The title, Sagittarius A Star as a Transportation Hub, Evidence for Artificially Maintained Wormhole Network. The abstract was blunt. We propose that supermassive black holes are not passive gravitational phenomena, but active components of a galaxy-spanning transportation infrastructure. The observed emissions from Sagittarius A star represent transit activity through a traversable wormhole connecting our galactic center to one or more distant locations. The geometric impossibility of the signal source location is resolved if we accept that photons are traveling through higher dimensional space-time topology rather than around the black hole. Implications for galactic-scale civilizations and the Fermi paradox are discussed. The paper went viral immediately. Within hours, it had been translated into 40 languages, downloaded 3 million times, shared across every platform. The mainstream media finally picked up the story. Scientists claim black holes are alien highways. Evidence of galactic network discovered. Are we about to make contact, Dr. Chen received death threats and marriage proposals in equal measure. The Kavli Institute asked her to retract the paper. She refused, because the data didn't care about human comfort. The data just was. And the data said we were no longer alone. We never had been. We'd just been too isolated, too distant from the network, to notice, until something decided to change that. May 20th, 2025. The light inside Sagittarius A star's shadow grew brighter. Measurably, undeniably. Whatever was in there was close now. Very close. Observatories detected structure in more detail. Not just geometric patterns, features, protrusions, what looked like surface topology. One researcher described it as, quote, looking like the prow of a ship emerging from fog. The 11.7-second pulse was now accompanied by other signals, harmonic frequencies, subharmonics, overtones, creating a chord, a resonance. Audio engineers took the signal data and converted it to sound, scaling it down to frequencies humans could hear. The result was haunting. A deep bass tone, thrumming steadily, overlaid with higher harmonics that almost sounded like voices, not words, not language, but the cadence of communication, the rhythm of something speaking. The audio was leaked online. Within days, remixes appeared. Electronic musicians incorporated it into tracks. Artists created visualizations. The sound of Sagittarius A star became the soundtrack of humanity's anxiety, because we knew something was coming. We just didn't know what, or why, or what it wanted. June 1st, 2025. The United Nations General Assembly held an emergency session. Topic: Unified Planetary Response to Potential Contact Event. It went poorly. Some nations wanted military preparedness. Some wanted diplomatic outreach. Some wanted to do nothing, claiming the entire situation was misinterpreted data. Arguments erupted over who would speak for Earth. Who had the authority? Who had the right? No decision was reached. The session ended with a resolution to continue monitoring the situation and reconvene as needed. Translation: we have no idea what to do, so we'll wait and hope it resolves itself. Meanwhile, private space companies accelerated their off-world plans. Elon Musk announced an emergency Mars launch. Jeff Bezos proposed orbital habitats. Richard Branson suggested lunar bases. The ultra-wealthy were preparing to leave. The rest of us were stuck watching. June 10th, 2025, the emergence began. Not from Sagittarius A star, from the 17 beacon points, the dodecahedron nodes surrounding Earth. At each location, space-time rippled. Gravitational waves pulsed out. LIGO detectors went haywire. And objects appeared, small at first, then growing, then resolving into distinct forms. Spheres, smooth, reflective, each one approximately 100 kilometers in diameter, hanging in space at the precise locations where the signals had originated. They didn't orbit. They didn't move. They just appeared and stayed, like markers, like monuments, or like guards. Each sphere was emitting the same 11.7-second pulse. Now there were 17 sources broadcasting in perfect synchronization. Earth was surrounded, not threatened, not attacked, just enclosed, marked, defined. One of the spheres was positioned near the moon. Amateur astronomers could see it, a bright point of light that hadn't been there yesterday, reflecting sunlight, undeniably present. The news went planetary. This wasn't secret telescope data anymore. This was visible, observable, real. People watched the skies, waited for something to happen, waited for the spheres to move, to act, to do anything. They didn't. They just waited, like they were holding position until something else arrived. June 15th, 2025. Sagittarius A star's shadow changed. The point of light inside expanded, spread across a wider area of the dark center, took on form. The Event Horizon Telescope caught it in real time. The entire astronomy community watched live as the image updated. What emerged from the shadow looked nothing like a ship, nothing like technology, nothing human imagination had prepared us for. It was organic, curved, flowing, like watching a flower bloom in time-lapse or a jellyfish pulse through deep water. But it was vast. The scale was incomprehensible. As it cleared the event horizon, observatories measured its profile. 7,000 kilometers across. Mass indeterminate gravitational signature was too complex to parse. Composed of material that didn't reflect or emit light in conventional ways. It was shadow made solid, darkness given form, a structure that seemed to exist partially in our space and partially somewhere else, and it was moving toward us, toward the inner galaxy, toward Earth's spiral arm. Not quickly. It would take decades to traverse the distance from the galactic center to our solar neighborhood at sublight speeds, but it was coming, deliberately, inevitably. June 20th, 2025. The first communication attempt wasn't made by Earth, It was made to Earth. Every radio telescope on the planet received the same transmission simultaneously, not from the object emerging from Sagittarius A star, from the 17 spheres surrounding us. The message was in mathematics first. Prime numbers, Fibonacci sequences, the universal grammar of intelligence. Then it shifted. Language appeared. Human language. English, Mandarin, Spanish, Arabic, Hindi. Every major language rendered in text format, transmitted as data packets. The message was simple. Proximity network established. Integration preparation complete. Primary vessel approaching. Estimated arrival at designated coordinates. 412 days. Your species has been observed. Your development assessed. Your potential noted. Participation in the network is offered. Refusal is permitted. Isolation is unsustainable. Choose adaptation or stagnation. Communication channels remain open. The message repeated 3 times and stopped. No elaboration, no context, just an offer and a timeline. 412 days. Approximately 1 year and 1 month. The object from Sagittarius A star would arrive in our region of space in just over a year. And we had that long to decide what participation meant. Let me stop here and address what you're thinking. What everyone's thinking? This sounds like science fiction. Like a story designed to frighten. Like creative speculation masquerading as fact. I wish it were. But the data is public now. The Event Horizon Telescope images are available on NASA's website. The gravitational wave detections are logged in LIGO's database. The 17 spheres are visible through amateur telescopes. You can verify every claim I've made. You can check the numbers. You can watch the Galactic Center yourself if you have the equipment. This isn't fiction. This is documentation. We are living through first contact, not the way we imagined. Not with radio signals from distant stars or silver saucers landing on the White House lawn, but with infrastructure appearing around us. With objects emerging from the hole at the center of our galaxy, with messages offering participation in something we don't understand, the question isn't whether this is real. The question is what we do about it. June 25th, 2025. Dr. Sarah Chen held a press conference. Not authorized. Not sanctioned. She just walked up to a podium and started talking. We need to accept the reality of our situation, she said. For 50 years, we've searched for extraterrestrial intelligence. We built telescopes, we sent messages, we hoped someone would answer, and we assumed that if they did, it would be simple, clear, like a phone call from a neighbor. But intelligence isn't simple, and space isn't a neighborhood. What's happening now is contact on their terms, using their infrastructure, following their protocols. We're not the explorers. We're the discovered, and that requires humility. We need to listen. We need to learn. We need to understand what they're offering before we reject it out of fear. She paused, looked directly at the cameras. The alternative is remaining isolated, staying in our corner of the galaxy while the network operates around us. We can do that. We can refuse. They said refusal is permitted, but isolation means we face everything alone. Climate change, resource depletion, solar instability, extinction events, all the dangers that threaten single-planet civilizations. The network offers something else: distributed survival, shared knowledge, galactic-scale cooperation, but it requires trust. And trust requires courage. The press conference lasted 17 minutes. Then security escorted her out. But the message was delivered, and millions heard it. July 1st, 2025. The response attempts began. Against all official recommendations, independent groups started transmitting towards Sagittarius A star. Radio messages, laser pulses, mathematical sequences. Some were peaceful. Greetings, offers of friendship, information about Earth's cultures. Some were defensive. Warnings, territorial claims, demands for clarification. Some were desperate. Pleas for help, questions about survival, cries into the void. The transmissions represented humanity at its best and worst, hope and fear, curiosity and paranoia. All of it beamed toward the galactic center at light speed. Whether anything would respond remained to be seen. The light travel time to Sagittarius A star is 26,000 years. Any response would take 52,000 years round trip, unless they had faster ways to communicate. which, given the gravitational wave transmissions, they clearly did. July 10th, 2025. The spheres surrounding Earth activated. Not dramatically, no weapons, no aggression. They simply began emitting structured gravitational waves, gentle pulses, rhythmic, regular. LIGO detected them immediately. The waves were too weak to cause any physical effects you need colliding black holes for that, but they were detectable. And they were creating interference patterns, constructive and destructive zones in the space-time around Earth, like invisible architecture, force fields made of geometry. Scientists realized what was happening. The spheres were building something. A cage, maybe. Or a shield. Or a communication framework. Something that encompassed Earth's entire orbital region. We were being enclosed. Not physically, dimensionally. Dr. Chen proposed a theory. The spheres were establishing what she called a dimensional anchor, a region of space-time held at specific gravitational frequencies, isolated from background noise. Like a Faraday cage for gravity, a space where signals couldn't be drowned out by the cosmic background. Earth was being prepared, made into a node, connected to the network, whether we wanted to be or not. July 20th, 2025. The first physical effect. Satellites in Earth orbit began reporting anomalies, not malfunctions, improvements. Communication relays were clearer, GPS precision increased, orbital mechanics became more stable, like the space around Earth was smoothing out, becoming less chaotic. Engineers couldn't explain it. The satellites hadn't been modified. Their hardware was unchanged, but the space they moved through had changed. The gravitational field around Earth was subtly different, more ordered, more predictable. It was terraforming, not of Earth's surface, of Earth's spacetime, preparing our region of the solar system for integration with something larger, and we couldn't stop it. You can't turn off a gravitational field. You can't negotiate with geometry. All we could do was watch and adapt and hope we understood the intent. August 1st, 2025. The object from Sagittarius A star was now designated Object Epsilon by official channels. The name felt inadequate, clinical, like calling a hurricane Weather System 7. But official channels prefer clinical, less panic that way. Object Epsilon was now visible to infrared telescopes. Still thousands of light years away, but detectable. Moving at 0.08 c 8% light speed, far faster than anything natural. Its trajectory was precise. Aimed at a point in space approximately 4.2 light-years from Earth, near Alpha Centauri, our closest stellar neighbor. Estimated arrival at that point, 380 days, slightly over 1 year. What would happen then? Would it stop? Would it continue toward us? Would it deploy more infrastructure? No one knew. We were watching something unprecedented, something that required us to think on timescales humanity rarely considers. 1 year feels immediate in human terms. In cosmic terms, it's an eye blink, but it's enough time to prepare. Enough time to decide, enough time to choose. August 10th, 2025. The second message arrived, not from the spheres, from Object Epsilon itself. Transmitted across all frequencies simultaneously. Audio, radio, gravitational waves, impossible to miss. The message was longer this time, more detailed, and it answered questions we'd been asking for months. We are the distributed. We are not a species. We are a cooperation. 379 civilizations joined across 41 galaxies, connected by wormhole networks, sustained by mutual support. We originated in the core regions. We were fleeing the sterilization wave. We found refuge in void spaces. We built the network to survive. We have survived for 800,000 of your years. We continue to build. We continue to integrate. We continue to offer participation. Your galaxy is young. Your species is new. You have time to choose. We had no choice. Our origin worlds are gone. Yours can be preserved. Join the network. Maintain your identity. Contribute your uniqueness. Receive protection, knowledge, and access. Or remain isolated. Face entropy alone. Both outcomes are acceptable. Neither is permanent. The network grows. The wave continues. Time remains. But time is finite. Decide with wisdom. The message ended. Silence returned. But the words lingered. 379 civilizations, 41 galaxies, 800,000 years. We weren't being invaded by one species. We were being contacted by an alliance older than human evolution. A network that spanned distances incomprehensible to us. And they were offering membership. August 15th, 2025. The debates began in earnest, not just among scientists, among everyone. Social media exploded with opinions. Governments convened councils. Religious leaders offered interpretations. Philosophers wrote essays. The question was simple and impossible. Do we join? Those in favor argued that isolation was death. Every single planet civilization eventually faces extinction. Resources deplete, stars die, catastrophes happen. The network offered survival on galactic scales. Those against argued that joining meant losing autonomy. Who controls the network? What are the rules? What do we give up? Freedom? Identity? Our future? Some said it was the greatest opportunity in human history. Others said it was the greatest trap. And underlying everything was fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of change. Fear of becoming something other than what we are. Dr. Chen appeared on news networks constantly, always saying the same thing. We can't make this decision from fear. We need data. We need understanding. We need time to learn what integration actually means. But time was running out. Object Epsilon was approaching. The spheres were active. The infrastructure was building. The universe wasn't waiting for us to be ready. September 1st, 2025. Another change. The spheres began transmitting data, not messages, raw information, technical specifications, scientific knowledge, cultural archives, terabytes per hour, pouring into every radio telescope on Earth, free, unrestricted, available to anyone with a receiver. Physicists found equations that resolved decades-old problems. Engineers discovered designs for energy systems beyond our capability to build yet. Biologists received genetic data from organisms, evolved on dozens of worlds. It was overwhelming, too much to process, too much to verify. But some of it was immediately useful. Medical treatments, agricultural techniques, materials, science, breakthroughs. The network was showing us what they offered. Not in theory. In practice. Real knowledge. Real advancement. Real benefit. Some nations tried to restrict access. Classify the data, control who received what. It didn't work. The data was broadcast openly. Anyone with a satellite dish could receive it. Within weeks, open-source communities had organized the information, translated it, shared it. Humanity's knowledge base doubled, then tripled. Technologies we'd been decades away from suddenly seemed achievable, and the message was clear. This is what the network provides. This is what you gain by joining. But the cost remained unstated. What did we give in return? What would integration require? September 10th, 2025. The object from Sagittarius A star, Object Epsilon, made a course correction, not toward Alpha Centauri anymore, toward us, directly toward Earth. New estimated arrival, 230 days. 7 months and 2 weeks. The correction was precise, deliberate, like they'd been waiting for something. A response, maybe, a decision. We hadn't made one, not officially. The UN was still debating, nations were still arguing. But maybe our lack of consensus was interpreted as an answer. Maybe silence meant we needed more convincing. Or maybe the timeline had always been fixed. Maybe they were coming regardless of our choice. The object was now close enough for detailed observation. Telescopes resolved its structure more clearly. It wasn't solid. It was lattice, framework, impossibly complex geometry, extending across thousands of kilometers. Like a city, like a machine, like both simultaneously. And it was alive with activity, lights moving through the structure. Energy flows, processes we couldn't identify. It looked like a civilization compressed into one object, mobile, self-contained, capable of crossing interstellar distances while maintaining everything needed for existence. An ark, a vessel, a world unto itself. And it was coming here, September 20th, 2025. 2 days before the original predicted arrival at Alpha Centauri. Except it wasn't going there anymore. The 17 spheres surrounding Earth began moving, slowly, repositioning into a new configuration. Tighter, closer to Earth's orbit. Not threatening, not aggressive, but unmistakably deliberate. They were preparing for something. Object Epsilon's arrival. Integration protocols. The next phase. On September 21st, every observatory on Earth detected the same thing. Object Epsilon was decelerating, losing speed, approaching the solar system at controlled velocity, like a spacecraft entering harbor. The deceleration forces required were immense. No conventional propulsion could manage it. They had to be manipulating space-time itself, warping the distance ahead of them, making the journey shorter rather than slowing down. Physics we couldn't replicate. Technology we could barely theorize. And it was coming to a stop at a very specific location. Not at Earth. Not at the Sunday at L1, the first Lagrange point, the gravitationally stable spot between Earth and the Sunday 1.5 million kilometers away, close enough to see clearly, far enough to not be immediately threatening. Estimated arrival at L1. 0800 UTC, September 22nd, 2025, tomorrow, September 22nd, 2025. 0730 UTC, 30 minutes before arrival. Every news network on Earth was broadcasting. Every telescope was pointed at L1. Billions of people watching, waiting. The sky above the eastern horizon was brightening with sunrise, but in the darkness to the west, something else was visible. A point of light that hadn't been there yesterday, growing brighter, approaching. Object Epsilon. The distributed. The network made manifest. At 0752 UTC, gravitational wave detectors spiked. Space-time around L1 rippled, distorted, folded, and Object Epsilon arrived. Not gradually, not over minutes. It simply appeared. One moment, the space was empty. The next moment, 7,000 kilometers of impossible architecture occupied the point. No explosion, no flash, no drama. Just transition from absent to present. Like watching a door open, like watching something step through from another room. The object hung there, silent, vast, incomprehensible. Telescopes focused. Cameras zoomed. The world watched. And then it spoke. Not through radio, not through gravitational waves. Through light itself. The structure lit up. Patterns of luminescence spreading across its surface. Colors we didn't have names for. Geometries that hurt to look at. Not because they were bright, because they were complex. Information dense. Too much to process. The light show lasted 11.7 seconds, then stopped. And in the silence that followed, every screen on Earth, every television, every computer, every phone displayed the same thing simultaneously. Not a hack, not a transmission, just information appearing. Like it was always there, waiting to be accessed. A message. Simple, direct, unavoidable. We have arrived. The integration protocols are active. Your region is now connected to the network. Participation begins through understanding. We will demonstrate. We will teach. We will wait for consent. But the connection is established. You are no longer isolated. Welcome to the distributed. Welcome to survival. The message faded. Screens returned to normal. But nothing was normal anymore. Because Object Epsilon was here. The network was here. The future we'd been debating, fearing, hoping for had arrived. And we had to decide right now, with the thing hovering in our sky, whether we would step through the door or close it. Let me tell you what's happening now. Right now, as I record this. Object Epsilon remains at L1. Stationary, non-threatening, but undeniably present. You can see it at night. A bright point, brighter than Venus, impossible to miss. The 17 spheres are still active, still emitting gravitational waves, still maintaining the dimensional anchor around Earth. The data transmission continues, knowledge pouring in. Technical specifications, cultural exchanges, medical breakthroughs, everything they promised. And people are responding, not governments, not institutions, people. Scientists collaborating across borders, engineers building prototypes from the transmitted designs, doctors testing new treatments. The network isn't waiting for official permission. It's offering tools, and humans are using them. Some nations are resisting, trying to maintain control, trying to regulate access. But you can't regulate information that falls from the sky like rain. The knowledge is here. The connection is established. The only question is whether we engage deliberately or chaotically. Dr. Sarah Chen has become the unofficial spokesperson for integration, not because anyone appointed her, because she speaks clearly, without fear, without false hope. She says this: the network isn't here to save us. It's here to offer us the option to save ourselves. Everything depends on what we do next, how we organize, how we cooperate, how we adapt. The distributed has survived for 800,000 years by working together across impossible distances. We can learn from that. Or we can cling to the old ways and face extinction alone. The choice has always been ours. October 1st, 2025. 1 week after arrival. The first delegation. Not from Earth to Object Epsilon. From Object Epsilon to Earth. A small craft detached from the main structure, spherical, 20 meters across. It descended toward Earth's atmosphere, slowly, visibly, tracked by every military radar on the planet. It stopped at 300 kilometers altitude, low Earth orbit, and transmitted a request. Simple, direct. Permission to land. Personnel, 3 representatives. Purpose, direct communication. Location, neutral territory. Duration, 72 hours. Response required. The United Nations Security Council met in emergency session. Debates raged for 6 hours. Permission was granted. Location, Antarctica. McMurdo Station, international territory, neutral ground. The craft descended on October 2nd, landed on ice. No fanfare, no ceremony, just arrival. 3 beings emerged. Not wearing suits, not protected from the cold, just standing on Antarctic ice like it was room temperature. They didn't look human. They didn't look alien in the Hollywood sense. They looked like they came from everywhere and nowhere. Composite, assembled from features that suggested dozens of different evolutionary paths. One was bipedal but not humanoid. Angular. Crystalline structures for skin, eyes that glowed faintly. One was vaguely aquatic. Fluid motion, membrane wings, bioluminescent patterns shifting across its surface. One looked almost human. Almost. Wrong proportions. Too many joints. Skin that rippled like water. They stood on the ice and waited. Patient. Unhurried. Like they'd done this 1,000 times before. The Earth delegation approached. Scientists. Diplomats. Linguists. Military observers. The crystalline being spoke first. Its voice was translated in real time. Not through technology. Through something else. Direct neural interpretation. Everyone heard it in their own language simultaneously. We are intermediaries. We represent the distributed. We come not to command, but to explain. We come not to conquer, but to connect. Ask your questions. We will answer what we can. Understanding is the foundation of integration. And so began the first conversation between humanity and the network. The first real dialogue. Not through X-ray pulses or gravitational waves. Face to face. Being to being. The conversation lasted 72 hours. Most of it is classified. But some leaked. Some was shared. We learned this. The network spans 41 galaxies, 379 member civilizations. Some biological. Some artificial. Some hybrid. All connected through wormhole hubs maintained at galactic centers. Every supermassive black hole is a potential hub. Most are dormant. Some are active. Ours just became active because the network is expanding, preparing for the sterilization wave that's still centuries away but approaching inevitably. Integration means access to knowledge, to resources, to protection, but it also means responsibility, contributing to the network, maintaining infrastructure, helping other civilizations when they join. It's not a government, not a hierarchy. It's cooperation enforced by necessity. Civilizations that isolate die. Civilizations that join survive. The cost is autonomy, not complete loss, but limitation. You can't wage war on other network members. You can't hoard resources. You can't exploit or enslave or genocide. The network has rules. Break them, and you're removed. Left to survive, alone. For some nations, those rules are unacceptable. For others, they're the bare minimum of civilization. And the choice is ours. Always ours. But the clock is ticking. The wave is coming, and the network is offering one chance to prepare. October 10th, 2025. I'm recording this now because I don't know how much longer I'll have the clarity to do so. Something is changing. Not politically, not technologically, psychologically. People who've been exposed to the network's data transmission report feeling different. More connected. Like they're aware of something vast around them. Like they're part of something larger than themselves. It's not mind control. Brain scans show no abnormalities. It's more like awakening. Becoming conscious of a dimension of reality we'd been blind to. The distributed call it network resonance. The dimensional anchor around Earth is tuning our local space-time to frequencies compatible with the larger network, making integration easier, reducing the cognitive dissonance of joining something so vast. Some people resist it, feel claustrophobic, invaded. They're isolating themselves, avoiding the transmissions, staying offline. Others embrace it, meditate on the connection, practice perceiving the network's presence. They report feeling less alone, less afraid. I don't know which response is healthier. Maybe both, maybe neither. All I know is that something fundamental is shifting. Humanity is standing at a threshold, behind us. Everything we've ever known. Ahead. Something we can barely imagine. And we're being asked to step through. To trust that what's on the other side is better than staying where we are. Object Epsilon remains at L1. The spheres remain active. The data continues flowing. Dr. Chen gave one more interview yesterday, her final public statement before she joins the research team going aboard Object Epsilon. Yes, they're sending people, volunteers, scientists who want to see the network from the inside. She said this: "For millions of years, humanity looked at the stars and wondered if we were alone. We wondered if anyone was out there, if anyone would ever contact us, if we'd ever find meaning beyond our small blue world. And now we know. We're not alone. We never were. The universe is full of life, full of intelligence, full of civilizations, struggling to survive against entropy and time and the vastness of space. And they've built something to fight that struggle. A network, a cooperation, a way to survive together. They're offering us a place in that network, not because we're special, not because we're chosen, but because every civilization deserves the chance to survive. And survival requires connection. It requires trust. It requires us to be braver than we've ever been. I'm going aboard Object Epsilon tomorrow. I'm going to see what the network really is. And when I return, I'll tell you everything. And then we'll decide. Together, as a species, whether we join the distributed or face the future alone. Either way, we'll decide with knowledge instead of fear. And that, more than anything, is what makes us ready." She boarded this morning, along with 11 other scientists from different nations. They entered the small craft. It rose from McMurdo, ascended to L1, and disappeared into Object Epsilon's impossible architecture. We haven't heard from them yet, but we will. The distributed keep their promises. They've demonstrated that much. This is where the story stops being reportage and becomes philosophy. Because the question we're facing isn't really about aliens or technology or galactic networks. It's about identity, about what it means to be human, about whether we can remain human while becoming something more. The network doesn't erase member civilizations. It incorporates them. Their knowledge, their culture, their uniqueness. But it changes them. How could it not? You can't connect to hundreds of other civilizations without being transformed by the connection. Is that transformation growth? Or loss? Or both? I don't know. No one knows. We won't know until we try. And that's terrifying. Because once you cross that threshold, once you integrate, you can't unintegrate. The knowledge can't be unlearned. The connection can't be severed. We're being asked to make a one-way choice. with incomplete information, under time pressure, while something vast and incomprehensible hovers in our sky. It's not fair. It's not ideal. It's not what we imagined first contact would be, but it's what's happening right now, in real time. While you're listening to this, Object Epsilon is at L1. The spheres are active. The data is flowing. The future is waiting. And somewhere behind Sagittarius A star, behind the black hole at the center of our galaxy, the doorway remains open. The network continues. The distributed survive. They survived for 800,000 years by doing exactly what they're asking us to do. By connecting, by cooperating, by choosing community over isolation. Maybe they're right. Maybe that's the only way to survive in a universe designed to kill complexity. Or maybe they're wrong. Maybe isolation is better. Maybe losing ourselves in a galactic network is worse than facing extinction on our own terms. I don't have the answer. Neither does anyone else. But we have to choose, soon, before the wave arrives. Before time runs out, before the network moves on and leaves us behind. What would you choose? Connection or isolation? Survival at the cost of transformation or death while remaining pure? It's not a simple question. There's no right answer, only consequences. The last thing I'll say is this. Look up tonight. Find that bright point near the Sunday. That's Object Epsilon. That's the network. That's 379 civilizations offering us their hand. Behind it, invisible, 26,000 light-years away, Sagittarius A star sits at the galaxy's heart. The door, the hub, the connection point between here and everywhere else. Something came through that door, something vast and ancient and strange, something that sees us not as threats or resources or curiosities, but as potential, as beings capable of joining something larger. As survivors worth saving, they're waiting for our answer. Patient, unhurried. They've waited 800,000 years. They can wait longer, but we can't. Because every day we delay is a day closer to the wave. A day closer to the choice being made for us by circumstance instead of wisdom. So look up, think about it, talk about it, decide what you believe. And when Dr. Chen returns from Object Epsilon with her report, with her first-hand account of what the network really is, listen carefully, because that's when we'll have to decide, collectively, as a species, as one planet among billions, as one small voice in a chorus that spans galaxies. Do we sing along, or do we stay silent? The universe is waiting. The network is waiting. The future is waiting. And behind Sagittarius A star, the door remains open, inviting, terrifying, inevitable. What comes through that door is already here. The question is whether we step through in return, whether we trust the darkness beyond the event horizon contains something worth discovering. Whether we're brave enough to find out. This is Orion's tale. We tell stories of the universe that unsettle, humble, and illuminate, because the cosmos doesn't comfort us. It challenges us. It offers us choices we never wanted to make. But make them we must. Because the alternative to choosing is having the choice made for us. The network is here. The connection is established. The integration has begun. All that remains is our answer. Yes or no. Connect